Let's take out our Bibles and learn together. God is a giving God. God loves to bless his people, and God will bless us according to his promises. And we have been studying how the children of Israel have inherited according to their covenantal promises, based upon God's will and God's direction. Take out your Bible and look with me to the book of Joshua and chapter 17. Now, we've been in this section for quite some time, the section of the book of Joshua that deals with the distribution of the land, where the tribes are receiving their inheritance according to the location of God's will. And we've seen a spirit of submissiveness come over the people, that they do indeed respond to what God has given to them according to his order, according to his boundaries. And let me just say, before we go any further, it is good for you and me to accept and live within the borders that God has for us. It's when we go beyond, that's really what transgression is all about, when we go beyond the borders that he establishes. And realize something, our God is a good God. He loves you so. He's demonstrated that love even while you were in sin, that he sent his only son into this world to redeem you through the death of that son. So he loves you, and therefore the restrictions that he places upon us, don't think that liberty is that we can go beyond those. Liberty is that we can serve God within them. And this is such an important biblical truth that we need to understand and apply to our life. So as I said, look with me to the book of Yahushua, the book of Joshua, and chapter 17. Now, we've seen a few tribes receive their inheritance. First, those on the eastern side of the Jordan River. We've spoken about Reuben and Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh. And now we're dealing with something. We began a few weeks ago dealing with this other side of the Jordan River, which begins with the inheritance of Judah. And then last week, in the previous chapter, we saw the inheritance of Ephraim. And now, once more, we're dealing with that tribe of Ephraim that had land on both sides of the Jordan River. So look with me to this 17th chapter and verse 1. It reads, "And it came about, ha-goral," that is the lot. And again, this is a word that speaks about God's selection of what they're going to receive, when they're going to receive it, and what they are called to do with it. To inhabit that land, to live according to the people of God within, once more, these borders. So it came about the lot to the tribe of Manasseh. For he is the firstborn of Joseph. Now, we saw back in Genesis chapter 48 that Ephraim, he was the child, the son of preference in a unique blessing that he received. But now we're speaking of the firstborn of Joseph, literally in time, and it's Manasseh. As I said, Ephraim has already received their full allotment last week in chapter 16. So once again, the emphasis is on Manasseh, that half tribe on the western side, not the eastern, we've dealt with that, but the western side of the Jordan River. So we see that Manasseh was the firstborn of Joseph, of Machir, the firstborn of Manasseh, and the father of Gilead, for he was a man of war. Now, notice something. When it speaks about this one being a man of war, notice what it says. Vayehi lo, and it came about to him, speaking about the inheritance he received, ha-Gilad veha-Bashan. Now, the Gilead and Bashan, two very strategically important pieces of land, good land, land that is related to the promise of God. We see here that in this land there was the expectation, as it was with all the land, to dwell in it and inherit it, meaning possess it, so the purposes of God can be fulfilled. And Manasseh, the firstborn, he received this special land known as Gilead and Bashan. Verse 2. And it came about for the sons of Manasseh that remained according to their families. So more of these families are going to inherit the land. We've seen this throughout our study. According to the families of the leaders of the tribe. And it says to the sons of Aviezer, and to the sons of Chelek, and to the sons of Ashriel, and to the sons of Shechem, and to the sons of Chepher, and to the sons of Shmi-da. These are the sons of Manasseh, the sons of Joseph. And notice what it says. The male sons of Joseph according to their family. Now, this is the first time that word zachar in the plural, the males. So here we're talking about the males as we have been throughout. So why the necessity? Why speak about males when this has been the normal methodology? Well, we'll come to why in a moment. Look now to verse 3. We're going to deal with another family, and we see something. If you're a good student of the Bible, you'll remember that in Numbers chapter 27, the same family is mentioned. And there was a problem because this man had no sons. So was it permissible for the daughters to inherit? Well, they had to go before Moses, who had to inquire before the Lord to see what is proper. And we know exactly what it is. Numbers 27, God says yes to these daughters, that they are going to inherit. Look at verse 3. And to Siflofchad, the son of Chepher, the son of Gilad, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, there was not to him sons, rather daughters. So no male sons, as we've seen previously. Only in this family there were daughters. And these are the names of his daughters: Machla, Noah, Hogla, and Milcah, and Tirzah. So we see these daughters, names are given just like they are for male sons. And let me just simply say, there's something unique here about Israel. Now, in any other people at that time, women would not inherit. But for the children of Israel, taking it to Moses, who took it before the Lord, we see that yes, daughters can also inherit when there's no sons. These daughters receive their allotment. Verse 4. And they drew near, and we know it's these daughters because the verb is in the feminine plural. And these drew near before Eleazar the priest. So we have here as one sanctioning this, Eleazar, who is the high priest at this time. And not just Eleazar the priest, also before Yehoshua, the son of Nun, so the Joshua, the son of Nun, and before Ha-Nesiim, this is the elevated ones. Now this is probably a term. In modern Hebrew, it's the word for president. It's in the plural, the presidents, and it's simply the exalted leaders, the main leaders of the families. Now, this can also be the leaders. Look at what it says here very carefully. Before the leaders, and this is probably the leaders of the tribe. Joshua's there, the high priest is there, and the leaders of the tribes. Why? In order to show that this was sanctioned by all. And there's something very important here. We see something that's marvelous, and that is this. God spoke to Moses. Moses shared that. He revealed it. And now, the high priest, Eleazar, Joshua, who is the leaders of each tribe, they're all there showing, yes, this is God's will. There's an agreement. What's marvelous is everyone is submitting to the instructions of God. It says, as the Lord commanded Moses to give to us an inheritance in the midst of our brothers. Now, brothers meaning all the other families within the tribe of Manasseh. And he gave to them by the word of the Lord the inheritance in the midst of the sons, literally the brothers of, better yet, brothers of Avihem. So their fathers. So we see here, all of this is happening in a very public way, according to what the Lord commanded. And we see here that this inheritance was done in the midst of the brothers of their fathers. Verse 5. And they fell, meaning this goral, this lot fell, and notice what it says, on the regions of Manasseh, this land, and how much? 10. 10 besides the land of Gilead and Bashan, which is on the other side of the Jordan. So we see that there was 10 pieces that also went to this tribe in order that Manasseh would inherit it in addition to the land that was on the east of the Jordan River. Verse 6. For the daughters of Manasseh, they inherited an inheritance in the midst of his sons. And the land of Gilead was to the sons of Manasseh that remained. Verse 7. And it came about that the border of Manasseh, and now we're being specific, and we're going to see, as we've saw previously, that the land would go up to the border of another tribe. So all of these tribes had their individual inheritance, but they touched, the borders were shared. And there were specific places that were mentioned so that one would know where these borders are. Again, what are we seeing? We're seeing that God is a God of order, that he establishes things so that there is order. Why? Through order, purpose can be achieved. Revelation can be received. So revelation's received so the purposes can be obtained and the glory of God is manifested. This is what this is all about. Look, if you would, to verse 7, where it says, and it came about, the border of Manasseh was from Asher, this tribe, of Mikmetat, which is before Shechem. So here we know that Shechem is a city. We know where it is today in the Samaria area, what's called Shimon. And we see here that it went up, this land of Manasseh, went to Shechem. And then the border went to, many will say south, but it's literally to the right, to the inhabitants of En Tappuach. Now again, we've seen these places before because these are the shared borders. These names appear because these places were shared between the tribes so that there was closeness. There was a connection between them. Verse 8. And to Manasseh was the land of Tappuach. So they were the ones that actually controlled this city, Tappuach. And Tappuach is to the border of Manasseh with the sons of Ephraim. So we see that Joseph, two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, their allotments came together. Distinct, separated, shared borders, and when the border city was mentioned, frequently it would say what tribe could actually control that city that was the border city. Look, if you would, to verse 9. And the border went down to Nahal Kana, and southward to the river. And these cities were to Ephraim in the midst of the cities of Manasseh. Now, this is kind of a confusing statement. I'm going to read it again, but pay very close attention to what's being said here. It says, the borders connected. And it says, these cities that were to Ephraim were in the midst of the cities of Manasseh. For the border of Manasseh from the north to the river. And it came about that its goings out were to the sea. So there were certain places that, although they were to one tribe, the cities belonged to another. Why? Well, we're dealing with one tribe, in essence, the tribe of Joseph. Now, there was two allotments that made up Joseph's inheritance. And this was in order to show and keep a connection between all the tribes. And also among themselves, that there would not be thought of as simply Ephraim and Manasseh, but that they would understand they're one tribe. They had overlapping. They had cities that shared a common place. So all of this is important in understanding what God wanted. Verse 10. And to the south of Ephraim, and to the north of Manasseh. And it came about that the sea was its border. And in Asher, and now we're seeing that once again, this border, this allotment to Manasseh, also in this area on the west, also bordered with Asher, this tribe. It bumped together. It's a word for striking. It came together from the north, also with Issachar on the east. So now we're going to see, and we can draw this out, how these tribes were interrelated, how their borders were shared in order to keep that connection, that there was 12 tribes, but one people, the children of Israel. Look now to verse 11. And it came about to Manasseh in Issachar and in Asher, the cities of Bet-Shean and its towns. Bet-Shean was a larger place that had kind of suburbs, and that's what it means literally. I said its towns, literally its daughters, which is a way of saying the smaller villages and towns around this larger place, Bet-Shean. And also Yivleam and its towns, its daughters. Here again, daughters, not women, but cities that were suburbs of this place, Yivleam. And also the inhabitants of Dor, and its towns, and the inhabitants of Endor, and its towns, and the inhabitants of Tanakh, and its towns, and the inhabitants of Megiddo, and its towns. So we have these primary cities mentioned, and Benotav, meaning what? Its towns, its daughters, literally, but it's speaking about its suburbs. And literally, it's Benoteha, it's, because we're dealing with the feminine. Look now, if you would, to verse 12, where it says, and the inhabitants of Megiddo, this is what's known as Armageddon, this place. And we see that there was 3, and the word here is nephet, shaloshet ha-nephet. This is these 3 elevated places of elevation and also significance. Now, verse 12. But the sons of Manasseh, meaning the children of this tribe, the sons of Manasseh were not able to take possession of these cities. Why? Well, because the Canaanite, they undertook to dwell in this land. So some of the Canaanites, they took these places, and the tribe of Manasseh was not strong enough. They were not able to move out the Canaanites. And this word for inheriting, by the way, it's a different one. So we have 2 words. This word nun chet lamet, nachala, is an inheritance, or Yerusha. So we've been dealing primarily with the word nachala for inheritance or inheriting, but now it's a change. We've come across it before, and it's a word to literally take possession or drive out the enemy. They were not able to do so because the Canaanites, they undertook, they ventured in order to dwell in this land. Verse 13. And it came about when the children of Israel were strong, that they set the Canaanites for tax, meaning this. The Canaanites there became forced laborers. They lived there, but in order to live there and have life, they had to pay tribute, which was they became servants to the children of Israel. And it says they did not, nevertheless, take possession of all of its inheritance. They did not take possession of all. Verse 14. The sons of Joseph spoke to Joshua, saying, why have you given to me the inheritance, just one lot and one region? And I, meaning the sons of Joseph, that we are, it's I, and it's speaking in the first person, but it means we are a strong people, unto very much so that God has blessed us. The Lord has blessed me, he's saying, for his people. So we're strong people. God has blessed us. We've done things. Why are we just getting one inheritance, one place of allotment? Why not more? Well, notice the answer. Look at verse 15. And Yehoshua said to them, if a strong people are you, then go up for yourselves to the forest, meaning the wood area, the forest, and create for yourself there in the land of the Perizzites and the Rephaim. So it's saying, if you want additional land and you're strong, then go up to the woods, the forests, and clear it away yourself. And this will allow you more land. For they felt, and this is what it says, for confined you are to the mountain of Ephraim. So they felt that it was just too confined of themselves, this land, by the mountain, the mountainous area of Ephraim. Verse 16. And the sons of Joseph, they said, he has not found us the mountainous land. So what he's saying here is that the mountainous land has not been found for us. We want that high land as well, not just the forest, but the high land. And it speaks that the iron chariots is with all the Canaanites who dwell in the valley. So they're saying here, it's not the mountainous land for us because these Canaanites, they have these iron chariots and they are in the valley. And it says, to Asher is the house of Sha'an, Bet Sha'an, and its towns. And to Asher was also the Emek Yisrael. Now, we've talked about Bet Shean, we've talked about Megiddo, and you need to know something. There is hilly land around here. There are forests around there, but there's the valley. And I mentioned Armageddon. Well, the valley that they're speaking of, look very carefully at the end of verse 16. It says, to Asher was in the valley of Israel. This is also known as the valley of Jehoshaphat. This is the valley where God's going to judge, where Messiah is going to bring about an utter defeat of the enemies of Israel during the battle of Gog and Magog. And understand that the battle of Gog and Magog is also the battle of Armageddon. They have something in common. We see that Messiah comes to defeat the enemies of Israel, Gog and Magog, at the end of Daniel's 70th week. And this is what we learn as well about Armageddon. So two different names for the same battle, and this is the location. And I do not think it's an accident that this area that is going to be a battleground. In fact, some have said that it's the mother of all battlegrounds. And notice whose allotment it was? Asher. What does that word mean? Happy or blessed. So in the place where this horrible war is going to take place, blessing. Why? Because the children of Israel are going to be victorious. Now look at verse 17. And Joshua said to the house of Joseph, and to Ephraim and to Manasseh, saying. Now remember, Joseph is one tribe, he has two sons, but these sons are the ones who is inheriting the land, these two half tribes. Two halves equal one. And we're talking about the one tribe of Joseph that is broken up into these two tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. Look again at verse 17. And Joshua said to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and to Manasseh, saying, you are a strong people, and great power is to you. There will not be to you just one portion, one allotment. Verse 18. For the mountainous area will be to you. For the forest is, so it's, if a forest, it's a mountain, but it has a lot of forest on it. And it says it must be created, meaning you need to clean it off. You need to create this land for yourself, that it shall be to you for its going out, for its results, its endings. For you shall inherit the Canaanite. So it's saying, if you are this strong people, you come forward and say, we are a strong people and we need more land. He's saying again, go up and fight and take possession of the mountainous land that you want. Not just the forest that I gave you first. You can have the mountainous land, but you have to fight for it because you are a strong people. And it says, remember, there's going to be those iron chariots which are to him, but it says, strong is he. So the people, if you're strong, you can overcome the weapons of the enemy. Now, that concludes chapter 17, but in this study, I want to read one more verse. We'll read it again next week, but I want to read it now because it has to do with worship. Now, we've seen Judah on this western side of the Jordan River. We've seen Judah and Joseph. Joseph, Efraim, and Manasseh. So we've dealt with these two, and it's significant. Why? Well, Judah is the tribe of the Messiah. But Joseph was that special tribe in the days of Jacob. And they still have a special status. And notice what it says, after Judah and Joseph received their inheritance, look at chapter 18 and verse 1. And all the congregation of the children of Israel assembled. Where did they assemble? At Shiloh. This is where, notice what it says, this is where they caused to dwell the tent of meeting. And the land was conquered before them. Now, notice the message here of verse 1. And again, we'll talk about this next week. But we see an emphasis on Judah and Joseph. Judah had that messianic prophecy, but Joseph was that special son of Jacob, whom God used mightily while the children of Israel were in Egypt. And it's connected to that redemption. And then we see that it was in Shiloh that the children of Israel, now before any of the other tribes inherited in that western side of the Jordan, there is worship going on. So we see Joseph completed his inheritance with Judah. And what happens? Worship. They set up the tent of meeting, the Ohel Moed, the pointed tent, which is also known as the tabernacle. They caused it to dwell there in Shiloh, and they assembled there together. And it shows us the importance of worship. And that is why we began our study tonight with that very important verse from Psalm 145, which says, Tihilat Adonai yideber pi, for my mouth, it is going to speak the praises of the Lord. And then it also says, Yivarek kol basar, all flesh is going to do what? All flesh is going to bless Shem Kodsho, his holy name, Leolam Va'ed, forever and ever. What a wonderful verse. Tihilat Adonai yideber pi, Vivarek kol basar, Shem Kodsho, Leolam Va'ed. We have a wonderful God. Bless him daily, worship him continuously, and realize that when we have that as our objective, we are going to take possession of what the enemy wants to deny us. We serve a mighty God. Well, I'll close with that until next week. May God richly bless you. Shalom from Israel.